fact, I was asked to give a talk on science in India, what I feel about science in India, problems, challenges, and so on. So I'll do so. I'll give a little brief historical and little autobiographical introduction so that whatever I say is in perspective. Many of you may not know, when India got freedom in August 1947, I had just entered college. It was unbelievable, that occasion, 15th August 1947, a day that I will never forget in my life. I still remember going around the streets with gongs and bells and shouting with friends and young and old people. I still remember that. And then slowly, after my education, I don't want to go through all that history, I wanted to do science. My interest in science actually was kindled by our great founder. The first time when I was in high school in Bangalore, in year 1945, Professor C.V. Raman came to our school. Brother Narasimha still remembers that, we were both classmates. And he gave a talk. My God, I saw this Professor Raman with all this excitement, holding on to the lapels of his coat and talking about, saying, you may imagine Raman's lecture, you will understand. My God, I said, no, I want to be like that. I didn't know what it was, what he was saying. He was something, a person, when you look at him, you want to be like that. That is how I felt. I was exactly 11 years old at the time, and it was unbelievable, that experience. And then, before leaving the school, he said, told our headmaster, why don't you bring 2 or 3 of your school bright children to Indian Institute of Science, I'll show them around. And I was one of them, one of the students that teacher picked. And I remember in 1945 spending an hour with Professor C.V. Raman in Indian Institute of Science. Imagine, even today, I can't imagine such things happened to me in my life. And he said, okay, I didn't understand many things he said, as far as physics was concerned. But he was a very inspiring person. And it was very clear to me, all we need to get excited about science is a spark that is somehow initiated by some great influence. And anyway, I studied, and everything that happened to me in my life was something like by accident. In fact, I was doing my bachelor's degree. One day I was going through the chemistry department to a lecture, and this young man, the relatively young man at that time, was a lecturer. He said, come here, I want to show something. And he showed me one small paper of his in Journal of Indian Chemical Society with his name on it. He said, how come you got your name on that? I didn't know that people wrote papers, published papers. And I did my MSc thesis in Benares. In the MSc, you can also do research in Benares. And this professor published this paper with my name on it, and this is my paper. My God, I didn't know you could do that. I thought, my God, I better do that soon. And that bug of publishing started from that day, in somewhere in the year 1950. And then I did my MSc, I went to Benares, mainly because of that teacher's influence. And I did research, I did publish some papers from Benares. In fact, one was I published much later. A small note I sent to, I didn't tell the head of the department because I had done somewhat independently during my MSc thesis. And I sent to Science magazine. In fact, it was accepted. In fact, I had a small little note in Science, just with my name on it. I was young, I was about 20 years old at that time, 19. So it was a wonderful beginning. Then I went over to the United States to do my PhD. It was a fantastic experience because I did a degree in chemical physics, taking physics as one of my minor subjects and physical chemistry as a major subject, and it was wonderful. And I did all kinds of things, worked with so many professors other than my own major professor, did electron diffraction of gases, spectroscopy of various kinds, and so on. Then I went to Berkeley for a postdoctoral, had a fantastic meetings in that. I worked on early papers in NMR spectroscopy, all kinds of things. Then eventually I had to decide what to do. All because I had 3 offers from 3 universities in the United States offering me assistant professorships. One of them saying, because they've already published 28 papers, within 2 years we'll make you associate professor if you do well here. Promising that, in a very good university. I had to decide what to do, whether I would stay in the United States or what. I was exactly 25 years old. And then fortunately for me, Indian Institute of Science offered me a position, faculty position. I also had an offer of readership at Punjab University. I didn't go there, and my friend D.V.S. Jain is here, but it's in the wrong department, but it didn't matter. But still, I didn't go there. But I came to IAC. That is when the story of agony and ecstasy started. How do you do research in Bangalore with facilities that didn't exist? Except from old glass beakers and flasks and candle and wax and thread, there's no equipment for research. There's nothing like a spectrometer, a diffractometer, or anything that I used in a very big way in the United States. In fact, the physics department was so good, though I was not part of the department, though I was only a minor PhD student, they had allowed me free use of the crystallography laboratory and given me a key. That's how wonderful it was in the United States. So I used physics department as much as I used the chemistry department during my PhD days. But here I was in IAC, so that is when you see my agony started, what to do with. So I started borrowing here and there, published some spectra. I used to come to Pune a lot, because there was one spectrometer in NCL. I used to come and record a few spectra, publish a little note, little paper, and one of them in fact has become a citation classic, published in 1960. And C.V. Raman, and then I got to know him, I started writing a book, small book. The reason was, ultraviolet spectroscopy and electronic spectroscopy molecules were all written in old language, K band, L band, M band, they're meaningless. They are not using molecular orbital rotation like pi, n, sigma, like that. So I wrote a small book on using molecular orbital rotations, and that got published in London. In fact, that came in 7 languages later, at that time. So then I was going through this, I went, how do I make a grade in India? And then I thought, I must pick some area where I can do with the existing facilities, not look for facilities which don't exist. That is how I decided that area was going to be solid state chemistry. Because I knew there were a few solid state chemists in the world, not too many, a couple of them in Germany, 1 or 2 in France, 1 or 2 in the UK, not too many in the US, and not many. In fact, solid state chemistry as a subject was relatively unknown. So I started working on it, and people used to make fun of me. What is solid state chemistry? There is solid state physics, but there is no solid state chemistry. No, I said there is. Of course, I had to keep, somehow put up with the little comments made behind my back by all my friends. Well, that has paid me off. That subject has become so important. Today it's called chemistry materials, and the subject is so important that it is nearly 40% of present day chemistry. Today's chemistry has 2 directions, mainly either in biology or in advanced materials. The rest of it is there, but not with the same importance. So it is very good to have started in an area where nobody was working on it. So that's why many people think I'm a grandfather of the subject even now. And in fact, it did happen to me. At that time, there was a joke I always tell the people. A few years ago, I gave a lecture somewhere in Europe, in an international conference. I was in the airport and somebody came and said, Professor Rao, it was a very nice lecture you gave. Some 30 years ago, or 40 years ago, there was a paper by somebody with the same name. And I think by now that man must have died. I said, no, I didn't mean. This actually happened to me a few years ago. But what I'm trying to tell you is, some of the part of the address is meant for young people here whom I love. They are the future. It is for them I knew, mainly because I work with these young people. And the lonely road, whenever you pick a problem, don't work on a crowded road. Somebody is doing some crazy experiment on Bose condensation, I will also do that. Somebody does something in laser, I will do that. Yeah, you will be known for good paper, but nobody will remember what you have done. The best papers written from India are not cited because of that. Because they are working on problems that are no longer of vital interest. You have to create problems of vital interest. Second, in all this, for your own sake, young people, I advise you. Old people I won't advise because they won't like it. Pick a lonely road. In fact, you remember the famous poem of Robert Frost, 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And that has in fact made all the difference in my life. Anyway, I have continued this subject. Even today I work mainly on chemistry and materials. Though of course I still worked on spectroscopy till about 30 years ago, 25 years ago. In fact, I wrote a second book on infrared spectroscopy that has a lot to do with this academy. That is a 700-page book, came in the year 1963. It was published. The first book of mine came in 1960. And C.V. Raman saw that book. He remembered me because he was very wonderful to me when I was a young staff member in the institute. But as you know, I had to leave IISc because the facilities were not good enough, so I went to IIT Kanpur, where the facilities were somewhat better because of some American help we had. Well, not super, but reasonable, much better. So I went there, and this book came out when I was in IIT Kanpur. So I just got this letter, I'll never forget, from C.V. Raman. Dear Dr. Rao, I have seen the book you have written on infrared spectroscopy, which I am very impressed with. Anyone who can write a book should be a member of this academy. If you have no objection, I will see that you are elected to the academy. How many people get such letters again, not true by someone like Raman? I will never find this in my life. This is my first recognition in life. My first recognition in life in science was the election to this academy 50 years ago. And of course, soon after I got a medal of the Faraday Society in England within a year. Another year later, I got a Butler Prize. All that come later. But I don't want to count all my medals and prizes today. That is not the purpose. But the first recognition and relationship to academy, I wanted to remind myself in public. I'll never forget C.V. Raman. I'll again mention C.V. Raman in some other connection later. Well, things have improved. Lots of institutions have come. Hundreds of institutions in India. Hundreds of universities, labs. Well, there was a time when I used to advise Rajiv Gandhi in 1985, 86, something like that. Well, if we try hard in the next 10 years, India will be in the top of the scientific world. I used to tell him. And we even knew how to do that. He had agreed to increase the science budget to 2% of the GDP. All kinds of things had been worked out. And then, unfortunately, of course, that didn't happen. But in the meantime, forgetting all that, the world has changed. Competition has increased beyond our recognition and technology. It is impossible to compete today because anything you write is just not looked at by the editors. The rejection rate is something unbelievable. Journals take pride in the rejection rate they have. One journal I just got published, a paper, it is impossible to publish. In fact, it's much more difficult in this journal than Nature or Science magazine, the one journal I'm talking about. They take pride in saying we have 99% rejection rate. The other journal I published a few months ago, the editor, I know him very well, he wrote to me, Professor Rao, unfortunately, times are bad, too many people are publishing, too many people are submitting papers, so the rejection rate has increased to 95%. Now, in fact, there's a competition on how much rejection rather than how much acceptance papers is there in journals. That is a competition. How do you publish a paper of quality which people will remember? Not just another paper. In a good journal. That itself is a problem for young boys and girls who are in science today. Even for older people. Older people who would easily publish papers in standard journals find it difficult to publish them today. And extremely difficult. So, that is one thing that has happened, competition. And at the same time, what else has happened? Our funding has gone through a very bad situation. You see, education, which is the most important element of social well-being, has never got importance in Indian history. We still have 2% of the GDP for education. When we wrote the national policy for education and P.V. Narasimha Rao was education minister, we said it should be 6%. And when he became Prime Minister, I asked him, Mr. Narasimha Rao, what happened about education, increasing it to 6? He just forget about it. It is still 2%. It is still 2%. That 2% goes to all primary education, middle school, high school, and how much is coming to higher education, you can imagine. Very, very little. The situation in science is not better. The so-called 0.8, 0.9% of the GDP they talk about, what they don't tell you is where is that money going? Most of it going to atomic energy, space, DRDO. What are you getting? Fundamental research, basic research, which is the foundation of all that we do today and in the future. That gets almost nothing. In fact, what I have been always talking about it, but I am a lone voice, very few people support me in this. Big science has got too much importance in India compared to small science. Manmohan Singh got convinced about that. Professor Rao will rectify that. Small science is the one that drives society. It's a little biology, little physics, little chemistry we do in our little laboratories. We little people, we are the ones who change science. The big science, big accelerators won't change. A little bit, yeah, once in a way Higgs boson or something will come. But that is not, without we didn't have Higgs boson, what will we do? We will still manage. But without biology and medicine, we wouldn't have managed. That's a real thing. Why is it this disease biology gets less importance than accelerators, using accelerator? I have nothing against accelerator. I'm all for astronomy, I'm all for accelerator, higher energy physics. But they're not at the cost of little science that we do. And we are paying a very heavy price. Young people, we started a program, I was the author of that, should get startup funds very easily. Even that is slowly going away. And young people should be given, without much refereeing, some minimum grant of 5 or 10 lakhs. Just they ask for it, you just give it, let them get started. They're not doing that. So funding is a problem. Well, other than funding, there are many other issues which I will not go to, but in one sentence I'll mention. For example, last year, many of our institutions' budgets were cut. The cuts still continue. You know, an institute like mine, where they have Nehru Center, the shortage of funds was 10 crores. It's so little. It is disgusting even to mention in a big country like this. The total money required to make up for the deficiencies of budgets in all institutions put together, I calculated, comes to about 1,500 crores. That's all. IISc, IIT, JNC, couple of thousand crores. It is trivial money for India. But nobody cares. And so the budget deficiencies are continuing. I hope the government will change and make up for this kind of deficiencies. I'm not asking for big money. Even the existing money is cut. It's already marginal funding. I think we'll all have to close up and say, look, what else do I do next other than science? We'll have to see. And then the government has to look into that. Well, anyway, having said about government, it is not as if government is only responsible for the status of science. Of course not. We are all equally responsible. Well, eventually, as Faraday said, how good your science is depends on the problem you pick, he said. It is the picking the problem that is more difficult than doing it. Faraday's famous statement. I completely agree. I think we are masters of picking trivia. Indians just don't pick good problems. I am in many major committees in the world. I won't mention subjects, not to insult anybody here. I get upset anybody. Committee members tell me some of them big names, Nobel laureates. Professor, why is it such brilliant scientists, they do such good science in India, they work on problems which are not interesting? I don't know, I have no answer. We have to start changing. This is meant for young people. I'm not worried about people of my age group. So I think we have to do something about doing the right science and the right problem as Faraday defined long ago. And people say, about coming back to funding, well, how come there are not many universities in the top 100? Why can't IIT be an MIT? Well, all that because of money. That's true, I agree. But quite a bit doesn't depend on money. This is what I'm talking about. How is it human effort is so marginal in many of our institutions? We have not changed curricula, we gave the same miserable courses in all the universities, outdated courses which have no meaning at all. Why do we do that? I think we, therefore, have a lot to contribute, we as teachers and as scientists. Now, other than that, you may not agree, but I have noticed this is a problem of old age, advantage of old age, both. When you get old, you keep observing a bit more. You see the beauty of nature much more. When you're young, you don't see the beautiful flower, you have no time for it. Now I see flowers and trees more. And I also see the terrible things around. One of the things I see which is not very enjoyable for me to see is the change in the value system of our society. I still will never forget, when I was in America for normal 6 years, the only letter I got once with my mother and my father, or both of them, don't you think time has come, sometime you should come back, do you think you'll come back? Can you live with us? I'm the only child of my parents, I have no brothers or sisters. Well, that touched me. In fact, one of the things I added to my coming back, in addition to the job in Indian social science. Today, when I meet faculty members, the other day somewhere I gave prizes or some mementos to retiring people. One of them came and said, "Sir, I'm a very happy man." I said, "Why?" "You know, I've got 3 children, all of them are in the United States." So the value system has changed. I'm nothing against or for. I'm not saying what is against, what is for. Question is, this is how thinking has changed in society. I'm not worried about where anyone stays. The real problem is, the real change is not that. When I was young, people valued scholarship much more. You know, in fact, people say, "What are you doing research? You're doing the institute." You know, if you're in the institute in India, or not in India, in Bangalore to start with, oh my God, it was something. Today, nobody gives that respect for those who research, scholars. It is money, interest, FDI. Have you ever seen major scholarship items on scholarship or education on the front page of any paper? However, FDI will come and interest rate will come, all other banalities of society come. It is amazing. This is what I mean by value system. I somehow feel the society must give more importance to scholarship. Something Professor Raman always used to say. Something we have to respect. If the society doesn't respect science and education, how will the government respect? If the society can't divide better science, better education, the government will say, "Well, you know, they don't care, we also don't care, so less money." So however, there is a societal pressure to support education and science more. 6% of GDP for education, 2% for their science. The society said that, the government will listen. But no society, no group of society has taken this. Well, I don't want to go on saying this about society and science and government for too long. Let me come to individuals like you and me, all of us. We as individuals have to do many things. You know, we have to change a lot. Well, you know, we have very unusual peculiarities. If you don't mind, I won't say where this is from, but there is some truth in what I say. There are some people in some places in India, they are always angry. Anything you say, they never say. I just say, how are you? What do you mean? I say, how are you? I won't say where they come from. I'm sure Deepak Chatterjee knows where it is from. But this anger kills science. Anger, animosity, envy are the worst enemies of science. I want you to know that. The minute you are angry, you can't do research on that day. That's why you should never fight with your wife. The way you fight with your wife, that day you can't do any research. You know, I'm a happily married man. I've been married for 55 years, in fact 56 years. I've never fought with my wife. I've never allowed myself. I don't know how it is to fight with a wife. Well, you know, joke apart, seriously. You know, anger in society. Too much anger against government, against somebody, against anything. They're waiting for something to be angry about. If nothing is there today, they get very upset that they're not angry. Oh, I'm not joking. You must see people in some places have seen this happening. They're very upset generally. Why? I don't know. India has a lot of people upset about something. I think those who are scientists can't be like that. They have more equanimity, more pleasant attitude. Joke apart, let me come back to something more serious than that. Well, you know, selfishness is something that you're supposed to lose when you're a scientist. In fact, you do science for young people, give everything you have to young people. You're a good teacher, give everything to the student. There's nothing that you have not given to the younger generation. If that kind of a selfless attitude is something that's very important. In fact, science is one that promotes selflessness. But selfishness is something useful in publishing papers, doing good research. I want to do that work. That type of selfishness is not what I am talking about. Selfishness where you don't want others to succeed. You want everything for yourself. It's not a good thing. But it's very important in India. We learn to be generous. We learn to be less selfish. In fact, I always read a poem of Tagore in Gitanjali, poem number 30. I came out alone on my way to my tryst. But who is this that follows me in the silent dark? I move aside to avoid his presence, but I escape him not. He makes the dust rise, he adds his loud voice to every word that I utter. He is my own little son, my Lord. He knows no shame, but I am ashamed to come to thy door in his company. I feel that very badly in India. Selfishness is increasing in society to the extent most of the wealth of India is in a few hands. We can't afford that in science. In science, we have to spread, we have to create a new culture, we have to help our young boys and girls in the rural India. I go to all interior India. Many of you will not know. That is another interest of mine. My wife and I have donated quite a major part of my income in my life for this purpose. We go to Uttarakhand, we go to Kerala, all over. We had recently gone to Assam to talk to children, hundreds of children. And they are very excited. That is what I am talking about. Those children from rural India are so excited about science and education. You can forget about Bangalore. Bangalore is a city without a soul. They're all making money. They're all having very nice suit and tie and all. But forget about them. Let them make money. They are bankers, they are managers. But we need scientists who are thinkers. Those crazy people. It was said at one time in my university in Cambridge science and Cambridge progress is based on those crazy fellows in colleges. We need more crazy fellows here in India. People who do science because they want to do it. They're mad, they're not normal, they're making science all over. I don't mind. We need them. They're short of this. They're not too many normal guys in India. Otherwise, they're very angry. Okay, coming back, I think this value system I talked about should be taken very seriously. And another thing that is very, very important, I did tell you something about triviality that is taking society. I don't want to talk too much about it, but you know that today there are more and more people talking about trivial things than about important things. Oh, I don't know, you see the papers. For example, the price of dal made the front page for so many days. I have nothing wrong with that, because price of dal is important for every house. But how long? But are you as scientists going to worry about price of dal or going to worry about your research problem? I think we should not worry about it. I think scientists should leave this to somebody else to worry about. And let it be 2,000 rupees a kilo. What the hell with it? Let us do some good ideas. Let us create something. That is the way, what I mean by this. As, you know, again, Tagore said very well, this is my prayer to thee, my Lord. Strike at the root of penury in my heart. Give me the strength lightly to bear my joys and sorrows. Give me the strength to make my love fruitful in service. Give me the strength never to discuss the poor or bend my knees before insolent might. Give me the strength to raise my mind high above daily trifles. And give me the strength to surrender my strength to thy will with love. This is what we require. The will to do the right thing, not worry about trivialities. I think starting from the government to ordinary citizens, India is spending enormous energy on trivialities. You can see the atmosphere of society today. I don't want to become talk politics, but you can see what I mean. I use the word trivialities. If you want to use some other word for it, it is very sad. And then I also want to say, people ask me, SSCN Rao, you are 82 years old, how come you are doing research? I always say, you know, my age has something to do with the mind, age has when you do science. An old person can be quite reactive and all that. Age is the mind. Always remember Kabir Das. I hope you all remember Kabir Das famous Man mein Kashmir, Man mein Ganga, Man mein Snan Karo. Everything is in the mind. Age is in the mind. I have seen young fellows in my lab who walk like 80-year-olds. And I am running around like an 18-year-old. And it's very unbelievable. So I think the reason I am saying is this country should not throw out and literally throw out my fellow scientists who are getting old. They are literally kicked out. The last few months and years, I have seen wonderful people be thrown out of laboratories without knowledge. They are given 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month notice. It's a shame. Creativity of the highest variety have been contributed people who are very old and senior people. I worked with several of them. My very famous guru H.C. Brown, Nobel laureate in chemistry, died at the age of 94. He had 6 papers that year. Another person who was very closely associated with Professor Neville Mott, Cavendish Professor of Physics at one time. Neville Mott became Cavendish Professor of Physics after Lawrence Bragg in Cambridge. And the joke those days in Cambridge was, here we have at last the Cavendish Professor of Physics who is not a Nobel laureate. So he got very upset. He should have got a Nobel Prize for so many things he had done. For some reason they had not given him. He said 2 years before his retirement, he just wanted to voluntary retirement at the age of 65. Then he picked a problem which he had never worked on before and got a Nobel Prize for it 2 years later, much later. So I wanted to know this, and then he died again at the age of 93. Oh, I almost am going to tears when I think of him. You know, he was such a wonderful human being, a great human being, simple as a simple soul. But you know, one day I went at the age of 91 from Bangalore. There he was, bent down at the table, doing something. Professor Mott, what are you doing? No, Professor Rao, I'm correcting the proof of this paper. My God, how many of us correct proofs at the age of 91? That is what we need in India, God. Young and old has nothing to do with science. Only the mind. Is it available for science? If the mind is available, let us give it. And unfortunately, all the great people I know came out of poverty. Faraday came with nothing. They were the poorest of the poor families. Ramanujan worked his mathematics without any fellowship, scholarship, and government grants. All the people who did great science did with nothing. And I don't forget that. At the same time, I also remember people did science at all costs, doesn't matter how. We'll remember that and not bring age as an element. Suppose, you know, the government gives all the support. Somehow industry eventually wakes up and says science is important, which is not yet done. Suppose it gives at least 30% of science money, industry, then we will be in a better shape. I am prepared for nothing like that to happen, knowing what has happened in the last few years. If nothing happens, we as scientists have to do something. Within the existing budget, with all the bootstrap operation, whatever we have to decide to do the best teaching, create the best curriculum, work on the best problems we can work under those conditions and show that we count. I think that is what it is. And this is the kind of attitude I would like to I would like to strongly recommend to the future of India. Otherwise there will be no future. We are waiting for the government grants all the time. Suppose there is no government grant. Please do that. Don't forget J.C. Bose. J.C. Bose wrote to the British government for a 2,000 rupee grant to do his work. And the audacity was that accountant general said, look at the audacity of this young Indian scientist asking for 2,000 rupees from the British government to do his research. Let him save his money from his salary and do it. That is the letter he got back. Fortunately, Viceroy and others looked at it. Look, give him 2,000 rupees to him. He didn't have much money because he didn't discount telegraphy. We don't want that to happen now. We don't want that now. Even if it happens, let it be like this both. We should be like doing science in spite of, immaterial of existing conditions. Well, C.V. Raman became very fond of me. After his 80th birthday particularly, when I gave a lecture, he was so nice to me after that lecture. He called me all kinds of wonderful names and so on. And then, just before he died, C.V. Raman wrote a personal letter, Dear Dr. Rao, I was in Kanpur. There's going to be an academy meeting in Bangalore in the Raman Institute. You must come and give a lecture. When C.V. Raman said, you must come, I had no choice, I had to come. And there are hardly 30, 40 people, not many people, many old people like today. Young fellows are busy otherwise, and the old people. And then I gave the lecture, I gave structure of water, I still never forget. After that, I was so happy, what a wonderful lecture he gave. And all that. Then we went around, had coffee break, tea break, whatever it was. I'll never forget those words resounding in my head even today. Brother Rao, you know how Raman used to talk. Tell me, I'm now 80 years old. I thought India would become one of the most powerful countries in science. How come it did not happen? I feel so sad at my age of 80. I remember that. I'm now 82 years old. I feel the same way. There's no change. Well, all I can say is, as far as I'm concerned, I go by the philosophy of Bismillah Khan. You know, Bismillah Khan, when he was asked, Khan Sahab, आप भगवान से क्या प्रार्थना करते हैं? I'm sorry, I switched to Hindi. What do you pray to God? Bismillah Khan said, I say, oh God, keep me in the world of music as long as I'm alive. My prayer is that keep me alive. And as long as I'm alive, keep me in science. I hope all of you agree. Thank you.